Welcome back. This is The Firm. Capacity issues, investigation timelines, confidentiality breaches, merger guidelines, penalty guidelines. At the recent IBA M&A conference in Mumbai, Paiswini Upadhyay discussed all of these issues with CCI Chairman Ashok Chawla.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Chawla. So the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is the capacity issue that you would concede that CCI is facing. Mr. Dhingra has retired this month. Dr. Gauri's retirement is due next month. I'm told Anurag Goyal and Mr. Tayal are due for retirement in September. Where is the process currently when it comes to appointment of members at CCI?
The appointment of members is done by the government. There is a process laid down in the Act. So that will be a continuous process. In fact, members, as you would know, under the Act come for a tenure of 5 years. So members will go, members will come. That will be a continuous process. And I think currently the process to fill up these vacancies which you mentioned is underway in the government.
So where does it stand, sir? I hope we don't have a situation where the quorum is missing at CCI. That is one concern that lawyers and industry has.
Well, the quorum under the Act is chairman plus 2 members. 3 is the quorum.
Yeah.
So we are well above that. And the maximum the Act provides for is a chairperson and 6 members. So the quorum doesn't really get affected by the absence of 1 or 2 members.
Sure. Sir, in 2010, the Commission revised or amended its regulation to say that the DG will have 60 days to complete its investigation in any given case. But you would agree that in a lot of cases that investigation goes to over 18 months and 15 months. Is it linked to the capacity issue, or would you concede that these are not realistic timelines for DG to investigate, and hence the regulations should be amended?
2 months is certainly not the optimum or a realistic time limit. We need to look at that. But it's also true that the Director General's office has been taking somewhat longer than they should be taking, in spite of the manpower constraints, in spite of the fact that the organization is not very old. So we have impressed upon them the fact that at the most they should not take more than 6 months. And that's certainly more than the guidelines of 60 days. But 60 days, I'm afraid, will not give us a very thorough and robust investigation. So we'll need to look at that.
Are there any timelines that you're following in terms of making up your mind on a case whether there needs to be a prima facie investigation to the time that the DG needs to finish and to the time the order actually comes out?
Yes. In fact, recently, and I've spoken about it at 1 or 2 other forums, we are very keen that we should complete the initial process of prima facie view in maximum 2 to 3 months. So that means if somebody comes to us with an information, either way we should decide whether we're going to pursue that matter or that it's not a competition issue and that he's come to the wrong forum. That shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 months. The DG should complete most of the cases, and this has been conveyed to him in 6 months. Whereafter, if the DG's report, when the DG's report comes and we have to conclude the matter in the judicial process, that shouldn't take more than 3 to 4 months. So maximum in respect of cases which need to go to the complete end after investigation, 1 year, otherwise 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Let me come to the confidentiality issue now, sir, which is slightly perturbing. You had your first leniency application being filed, and I know this because it made headlines in the media. Would you agree that this is questioning the institutional integrity that CCI needs to have in these very confidential cases? And would you not like to make an example out of this situation and send out a strong message to industry that we are very serious about the leniency regime and you can come to us without any doubt of your information being leaked?
Well, all I can say at this stage is that we have tightened our processes further. We have identified a senior person who will himself handle every single matter relating to a leniency application and confidentiality in that respect. So we don't think this kind of thing will be repeated. But let me also say, though I have no clear evidence of this, that very often this comes from interested parties who are part of the group outside and perhaps find that somebody is trying to break ranks. So it's possible that it comes from outside. We needn't jump to the conclusion that what appears in the media is necessarily only from the Commission.
I know, sir, but imagine a situation where a company is coming to you with a leniency application. So definitely that company is not going to leak that information. It will definitely make sure that that information doesn't go to the competitors, because the leniency application would give that other competitor also immunity if, you know, a cartel or a bid rigging case is investigated. Then is it not a logical conclusion to draw that it's come from the CCI?
Well, I don't think it's a logical conclusion, because in a cartel there could be 4 or 5 members. If somebody breaks ranks, now that person automatically doesn't get leniency. There have been cases where one files for leniency, others immediately enter the door. So they're waiting to see whether the first one makes a full and complete disclosure or not. Only then
Will they get leniency?
that first applicant gets the benefit of lower penalty. So it's somewhat up in the air, but I take your point. That is very important. If we are really to succeed on the leniency and lesser penalty front, that the systems should be such that nothing goes out from the Commission and we maintain full confidentiality.
Okay. So the other aspect on confidentiality is when I come to you as a company to file information for merger control approvals, I would like 100% of my information to be kept as confidential. But a third party who may want to know that how CCI has made up its mind about giving or going about the approval may want to know the grounds on which CCI has based its decision on. But I can't come by a RTI because Section 8 exempts this kind of information, competitive information. I want to understand what kind of discretion does the Commission implement or take into account while keeping that information or classifying that information as confidential.
The Act very clearly provides that whatever information is given to us will not be disclosed to outsiders or other parties and used only for the purposes of the Act. That's the legal provision. When companies file, whether it is a merger case or an anti-competitive matter, they seek confidentiality on various documents. The Commission examines that, appraises the request, grants confidentiality to the extent that it is necessary or justified. And the principle that we follow, if that's what you're looking at, the principle that we follow is A, that the information should not otherwise be available in the public domain, because otherwise there's no point in either a party seeking confidentiality or our granting confidentiality on that. And the other is what period of time are they seeking confidentiality on. So these two tests we apply and pass orders on confidentiality.
Okay. Let me come to some of the procedural aspects where I've heard lawyers and industry experts raise their concerns, and that is the procedural aspects. I'll try and illustrate my point with an example, and you may choose to not comment on that specific example. In Jet Etihad order, we had a minority order and a majority order. The minority order was written on 14th of October, and the majority order was written on 12th of November, if I'm not mistaken. Some of the lawyers I've spoken to tell me that this amount of delay in majority order being written and minority already written is something which is ripe for appeal. Would you agree with that?
For one, and we'll not go into the specifics of this particular case which is under appeal, but for one, both the orders were put out in the public domain on the same day. It's possible that they were written, the member who wrote the minority order and who asked for a certain course of action wrote it sometime before the majority took a prima facie decision that it doesn't affect competition and put out that order. So that doesn't really matter. If a member who is going to give a dissenting viewpoint on what course of action to take, it's possible that he may write it sometime before the others write it. It's not necessary that he
writes it on the same day. But the majority now has the advantage, sir, of basing its order, or sort of, if you want to make that point that, hey, this is not going to have any appreciable adverse effect on competition, you have a basis or the order to go by to refute all of that reasoning, which may not be as the healthy practice.
Well, these matters build on the jurisprudence, and when matters go in appeal, I suppose the appellate forum, whether the tribunal or the Supreme Court, will look at all aspects, which will include the arguments on both sides of the spectrum.
Okay. So the second aspect is the scope of DG's investigation, and the COMPAT has recently reiterated in the aluminium phosphide manufacturers case that the DG cannot go beyond the prima facie order that CCI passes. Now, I'm told in certain cases, and this is probably polyester manufacturers investigation that has happened, where the DG, the prima facie order was on Section 3, DG went beyond with one company and investigated under Section 4. How is the Commission looking at this? Are you now going to come out with a brief which is very wide for the DG, or would you still restrict your brief to the DG so that the investigations conclude faster and not give a free hand to him?
See, the prima facie evidence on which the prima facie order of the Commission is passed and sent to the DG is based on whatever material is available before the Commission at that point in time. And in some cases, it's possible that the Commission might give a very specific direction on what to investigate. In the course of the investigation, the DG might find that there is more harm in some other area or in other provision of the law. So I don't think that should preclude him from going into that area. So what we are doing now to prevent this kind of problem arising in terms of the legal architecture and the legal process is that we have started giving a wider mandate to the DG, asking him to look at specific thing, but also saying that if there are any other anti-competitive practices which he finds during the course of the investigation, he's free to look at those also.
But then that gives a very broad mandate, don't you think, for the DG to investigate cases?
But he cannot go beyond the provisions of the law.
Sure. Okay, so the other aspect is the quality of orders that we've seen coming out from the CCI. And I'll try and make 3 quick points on this. One is, in certain cases, there have been complaints with regards that the Commission is not following the principles of natural justice, and there have been several successful appeals in the higher forum on this. Second is the penalty guidelines. Until we have the COMPAT, telling the regulator that you need to give aggravating and mitigating circumstances, there needs to be penalty guidelines. We couldn't find that in the Commission's order. The third aspect is, you found cartel in the cement company. There was no cartel found in steel and tire sectors. There is a thread of inconsistency that lawyers tell me is there in the reasoning of CCI, and which is why the jurisprudence and the precedent set by each of the orders is really vague. How would you respond to these 3 aspects?
First, let me touch on what is perceived to be similar kind of cases, but maybe somewhat different orders. I don't think that's our appreciation. The facts and circumstances of every case would be different, and the issue really is what is the evidence before us, what has been found. I mean, anecdotally, maybe they may be on the same footing. X industry may be as prone to cartelization as industry Y. But at the point in time when the matter comes before the Commission and when the DG investigates, unless there is adequate evidence, we cannot sort of carry it forward. So I don't think that's the appreciation that we have, that it's entirely on all fours, but there are different orders. On the penalty...
But it's a finding price parallelism in one